Someone comes into the shul. There was always a meshulach who used to come into our shul from one of those communities that didn't have the greatest regard for Eretz Yisrael. And I think he really saw in Mr. Engelman, he would first argue with him and tell him why he's wrong, and then he would give him a big hug and a kiss and tell him how much he loved him because he was a Jew. That's what Mr. Engelman was. So tonight it's a very special night for us, and in order to give the proper kavod, we're going to call on an extremely important person in our shul, Rabbi Dr. Aaron Glad, who will make the presentation. Now I want to say, I said earlier that there were a lot of unique characteristics of our synagogue. One of the unique characteristics is I don't think there's another shul that I've been to, and I've been to hundreds, where a former president of the shul is also the rabbi of the shul. That I don't think I've seen. People don't remember when Margie and Dr. Glad, Aaron Glad, came to our shul. They were devoted members, and Aaron even was roped into becoming president of the shul, although he didn't want to do it. But of course he brought that special touch that he has, and we all realized, as he would give his daf yomi, as he would give his shurim, we realized that we had a really superstar in our hands. And of course, Baruch Hashem, over the years, not only has our community, the Five Towns community, come to appreciate Dr. Rabbi Aaron Glad for what he is, I think the international Jewish community has really found out who he is, because today he's one of the most popular lecturers around, doing tours, Pesach programs. He's on the OU website with his Mishnah Yomis. He's written Sfarim, and I still feel that somehow your first love is always your love. So somehow he always comes back, like the Yonah, like the dove coming back. So he always comes back to our shul, and we can't wait for him to give his mini shurim and to give his classes. And it's a great honor for us that Rabbi Dr. Glad feels so close to our shul still, even though we have so many other responsibilities professionally and from a religious point of view. So it's a great honor and kavod for us, and I think really proper for the memory of Mr. Engelman that we ask our associate rabbi, Dr. Rabbi Aaron Glad, to present the naming of the youth department in memory of Harry Engelman. So Rabbi Glad.
Rishus Nemar Diasra, Rabbi Lefkowitz Shlita, as always, all the other Chashav Rabbanim, Rabbi Rice, all the other Rabbanim that are here. I won't go over all of the public accolades that have already been given to the previous honorees that are so well deserved. Rabbi Tzimtzir Kamenetsky, a blessed memory, and the Jacobs of Yitz Hashem, many, many, many more years to serve our community. Such an honor to have you in the shul. But the limited time that I have, I'll devote to speaking a little bit about Mr. Harry Engelman, Olav Shalom. This week, of course, everybody knows is a big yontif for the Jewish people. And I'm not talking about Purim. I'm talking about Yom Nicanor. This Wednesday is Yom Nicanor. Who is Nicanor? It's not the Nicanor that everybody thinks it is. Of the gates, the famous Maisa, the Nisan that occurred. But there was a Greek governor whose name was Nicanor. This is brought down in various sources in Yerushalmi, as well as in the Bavli, as well as in other places. And he was a horrible person. He lived in the time of the Chashmonai, Chanukah. And he constantly threw his hands up in the air and said, "When will you let me trample Yerushalayim?" And as it was, of course, this Russia and all the other Rishonim got their due eventually. And the Chashmonaim defeated him on Yud Gimel Ador, this Wednesday. And the rabbis declared that a day of holiday. It was written down in the Megillah's Tainus. And that day is also still being celebrated today in our memory. And I thought it's such a touching and beautiful memory for Mr. Harry Engelman, Olav Shalom. He faced the Nicanor of his day, Hitler Yamach Shemo V'Zichro. And just like the Nicanor in the Gemara, who was destroyed, he was literally hung up, his head was chopped off, his thumbs and his big toes were held hanging. The thumb that pointed towards Yerushalayim, the feet that wanted to trample Yerushalayim, our holy city, which Mr. Harry Engelman loved so much. We defeated Nicanor, and we defeated Hitler Yamach Shemo V'Zichro. And it's people like Mr. Harry Engelman who sit in Shemayim today and look down upon us, hopefully with blessing and being a Melitz Yosef for all of us. He went through the Nicanors. He went through a horrible early childhood life and rebuilt and made such a beautiful mishpacha here. It is truly an honor for our shul to have had him daven with us for so many years. I had a very close personal connection with him. He was a very special individual. I mentioned the Levaya, that my mother was also a Holocaust survivor, and he would always ask me, he would never ever meet with me and ask me without asking me, how is my mother doing? May she live and be well. He epitomized a survivor who succeeded, his love for Eretz Yisrael, his love for the Kehillah, his adamant demand that we constantly remember what happened, and that we constantly remember Eretz Yisrael, his love for Medinas Yisrael, his love for all Jewish people. And it's truly an honor and a tribute for our shul to rename our youth program the Harry Engelman Youth Program. And we're going to hear momentarily from Debbie, his wonderful daughter, a devoted daughter, and also from Jackie, together, a devoted son-in-law who was treated like a son. And Mirza Hashem, the whole mishpacha should be honored, and we're honored to name the youth program the Harry Engelman Youth Program. It's my honor now to call upon his daughter Debbie, former president of the youth wing, Anshei Chesed, to come and address us. And Jackie was the president right before me. He's the one that snookered me in.
Thank you, honored rabbis, family, and friends, for joining our shul in honoring Rabbi Benjamin and Mrs. Kayla Jacobs and the rededication of our youth department in memorial tribute to my father. In all honesty, tonight is a bittersweet moment for me. For just barely 3 months after his death, this evening is yet another reminder that my dad is no longer here in this world and that his neshama is now with Hashem. Yet I am touched and overwhelmed by your loving dedication to his memory. As I stand here tonight, looking around the room, I think to myself, what would he have thought to all this attention bestowed upon him? He would have loved it all. The food, the speeches, his friends and family, and especially his grandchildren surrounding him. I can imagine him sheepishly whispering in my ear, "Look how much everyone loves me. I have so many friends." He would take delight in everyone's company, young and old, but especially the young children. I can imagine him telling me, as he often did in the months before he was nifter, "Will you remember me?" So, I'm asking everyone here tonight to do my father the honor of not only thinking of him as the candy man, the smiling, warm, effervescent old man that gave out lollipops and sweet and sour green apple candy, which seems a fitting metaphor to his turbulent and fulfilling life. Please remember him for the man that lied beneath the surface and the way he lived, the man that my family knew and loved so much. A man that believed not only in Am Yisrael, but in Medinat Yisrael and in its secular culture, and implored us to sing the Hatikva on Yom HaShoah because it signified our liberation from the atrocities of the Holocaust. A man that did not discriminate between Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform Judaism because we were all one people. A man that did not believe in extremism of any kind. A man that was a member of AIPAC and had a subscription to the Jewish Week. A man that was proud to serve as part of the Haganah movement and in the Golani Brigade as an original Chayil Bodeh in the Israeli army from 1948 to 1952. A man that didn't think of himself as a hero, because he claimed everyone posed with the same army picture, his chin perched on top of his gun. He was a man that taught me that conversational Hebrew had just as much value as speaking the English language. He taught me that even though I may not always agree with him, kibbud av va'em was of supreme importance. He taught me to step up to the plate for those that you love, to keep my word, and that actions speak louder than words. He taught me to plan ahead and to follow through. My father taught me the meaning of bravery, not only because he survived the Holocaust and 3 death marches, but because he knowingly faced his own death on his terms with acceptance, grace, and strength, because it was his time, he said. A man that taught me much of what I know today, except how to live without him. I think of him every day and hope that when you and your children remember him and taste a sweet and sour apple candy, you'll remember his spirit and his zest for life. And every time you'll glance at his seat, his makom kavua, next to Jackie, my husband, think of him kissing your kepi, and then glancing up to the women's section, throwing me and my girls a hug and a kiss. But please, remember to keep the window closed so you don't feel the draft. Thank you again for attending this beautiful tribute in memory of my father, and for giving me the opportunity to be Mekayim the mitzvah kibbud av once again.